Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Hump Day edition of The Rundown. I am your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the left coast behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras, in the state that is run by Gavin Mussolini. But as we all know, I do not do this program on my own.
No, you do not. You get assistance from me over on the East Coast. My name is Mike Peworski. I will be coming to you live today as the co-host this afternoon on The Rundown.
From the Gunshine State, run by Captain Florida.
Captain Florida, not the... You're right. Like you said, you're behind the Iron Curtain today. It's the reinforced Iron Curtain. Or iron... What is it? Steel Curtain? Steel Curtain? Iron Curtain? What are you behind?
Taffeta curtain, I guess. I don't know.
I always think every time you say that, I think you say Iron Curtain. I'm like, oh, he's in Pittsburgh. Cool.
Well, no, it's more like Communist California or California.
Communist California.
People would like to refer to it.
I think there's something wrong with my chair. Hold on. I appear to be lower than normal. So, all right. Let's see how that goes. I don't know.
He's trying to adjust
so how was besides losing an election yesterday? How was your day?
My day was good, man. Like I said, it's very, very busy. Things are very, very busy around here. The weather is phenomenal, and the state is still controlled by the left. So nothing has really changed, except a certain degree of reality has set
right.
in. It's kind of like when you go and you buy that lottery ticket and you start thinking about all the stuff you're going to buy when and if you win the lottery, and then
right.
the numbers are pulled, you didn't win. That's kind of what it's like.
Do you recall back when after the 9/11 happened and back in 2001, and we came out with many, many, many different versions of the alert systems for terror warnings, and depending on which agency you're looking at, you were from 1 to 5 and DEFCON 3 and category orange and all of that. The comedian Ron White had his own system that he came up with, and it was a two-tier system.
Yep.
The first tier was get a helmet, and the second tier was put the helmet on.
Put on the helmet.
I feel like yesterday was get a helmet day for California.
Yeah.
You should definitely get a helmet. Yeah.
Okay, but see, the problem is that when you say that, you gotta say it after taking a sip of bourbon. Yeah. In order to do it the way Ron White does it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I can't tell you the number of times we actually applied that down to a two-tier system of get a helmet, put the helmet on. That's the way to do it.
Helmet. Yeah, yesterday was get a helmet day because and you know what? Let's just get into today's stories. So as you know, Gavin Newsom survived the recall, which, by the way, in many cases, and it is if you were following the polls and whatnot, which interesting. You never really know if polls are true or not. It was estimated that about 60% of the voters would vote to keep Gavin Newsom and about 40% would vote to recall him. And the numbers were pretty close to that. It was like 2/3 or 66% said keep him, and about a third said we should get rid of him. And I think what you'll start to see as the numbers start to come in, because a lot of the mail-in ballots haven't been counted yet, I think you'll start to see those numbers tighten a little, but probably still going to wind up somewhere around 60-40. But Mike, the interesting thing about it is a lot of people are saying that this isn't just going to be just about Gavin Newsom. Now we're going to start to see things like vaccine mandates and things like that. A lot of the things that Gavin Newsom wanted to do that he held off on doing, he's going to start to do now that he doesn't have a recall hanging over his head.
Yeah, you're going to get to see some good old-fashioned tyranny here shortly is what you're going to get. You're going to get, like you said, it's that second-term kind of fever. He's running. He doesn't have to run again. He can do whatever he wants in his second term. Well, now Newsom has had that brought to him quicker here, so he can, do whatever he wants, and he will do whatever he wants because he's no longer facing the recall election, and he's got a pretty good feel about where he's going to be in the 2022 election as well.
Yeah, well, and we pretty much know that unless someone runs at him from the left, chances of a Republican being able to beat him is going to be very, very slim. But once again, I'm hoping that we get someone who is at least has some coattails, whether they win or not, because we really need to see in California. I don't know that we'll ever see a Republican majority again, but what we really need is we need two-party governance, because what we're seeing right now is the left completely controls California and is heading us towards a cliff, quickly. Jerry Brown, when he was here, when he was governor, at least he understood that, as with Democrats controlling everything, at least he understood that somebody had to be the adult in the room. And he decided that he couldn't give his Democratic colleagues, liberal, left-wing, progressive colleagues, everything that they wanted. Gavin Newsom is under no such illusions. He that is not in his thought process. He will give them whatever the heck he wants. And people now are looking at this as a quote unquote mandate for the country. At least that's how the media is trying to spin it.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
This is a national Democrat Liberal Party controlling victory for the country. No, it's not. This is the rest of us doing this with you.
Right. In a state where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1, you should have kept your Democrat governor.
Yes.
My mistake, and I think our mistake was thinking that there were a number of Democrats and independents out there who actually had some common sense and were actually realists in understanding the dangers that this guy posed. And the truth is that they're all bought and paid for. They want free stuff, and they want the free stuff that Gavin Newsom is going to give them, and the Democrats are going to give them. So, unfortunately, that are be who they be.
Yeah. Again, we'll see what happens in California. Like I said, I think that tyranny's coming, Craig. I think that, like, you're right there, that you're never going to get that Republican candidate, legitimate Republican candidate. Now, you may get yourself another Arnold Schwarzenegger type of guy, and let's face it, Arnold Schwarzenegger won back then because there was a little bit tighter Democrat Republican difference, but because he was a celebrity and he was in California. If somebody, and I know Larry Elder and Bruce Jenner out there are pseudo celebrities, but if there had been somebody of the superstar international Arnold Schwarzenegger category running, it wouldn't matter what party they were from, they would have won this time too, because it's California. But you did not have that this time.
Yeah, those are they're B-list celebrities. And, to be honest, the other thing was Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he ran, he stole. I don't know if you know who Tom McClintock is. Tom McClintock is a conservative icon here in California. He's represents the 4th Congressional District. One of the smartest guys out there that you'll ever know. I'm surprised he hasn't. He does not have a larger platform in Congress.
Right.
But I will tell you this. Literally, Arnold Schwarzenegger stole every single one of his talking points and then turned around and governed like a Democrat. Yeah. He literally stole all of his talking points. And Tom McClintock should have been governor as opposed to Arnold Schwarzenegger. We probably would be in a much different position. But, coups happen.
You know what he did? And this is what I've said many times. He campaigned like an action hero superstar. And he governed like a European.
Yes, he did. Yes, as a matter of fact, I think you just hit the nail right on the head. He governed like a European.
Yeah.
Moving right along. By the way, speaking of coups, there's a new Bob Woodward book coming out, and oh my, it is a doozy. Because in this one, you have General Milley, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In this book, there's a point where they talk about him actually organizing, and I feel very comfortable in calling it this, a coup against the elected president of the United States in order to usurp his power over the military. Am I speaking to this correctly? I mean, you know the military terms and the terminology and all that better than I do, Mike. But so, am I overstating things?
No, listen, this is a guy who clearly does not know how to stay in his lane, and that's a huge military term. Know what your duties and responsibilities are and keep your nose in there. He has convinced himself that he needed to go outside of that lane in order to save a country. I'll tell you what, and cut me off when we start getting too far into this, Craig. Everything I need to know about General Milley to start off with is that he's anti-gun. He does not believe that the individual soldier, sailor, airman, marine, just space sky, whatever the space force is called, guardians. I'm sorry, they're called guardians, and does not believe that any one of them should have a personal firearm to protect themselves when they enter a military base or they're living off a military base. That they should not be authorized to carry personal firearms. I want to make sure you understood that right. These are the people that we issue assault weapons to, actual machine guns, 50 cals, 240s, 40 millimeter automatic grenade launchers, but they should not have the ability to protect themselves or their families individually when back home in the United States. Not whatsoever. So that should tell you his political origins, okay? That should tell you his political party. He has continually defied Department of Defense guidance to issue and make policy to allow all of those military members to carry personal firearms, while on duty, off duty, in order to protect themselves. Remember, this came from the rash of shootings on military bases and at the recruiting station there in Tennessee, is when this policy was actually authored under President Obama, his last months during the transition, and then went into effect during the first months of President Trump's administration. Yet General Milley never acted on it. General Milley is the general that, by the way, is the last man standing when it came to generals to pick for the 4-star general spot for chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. When Secretary Mattis came in, Secretary Mattis, having formerly been 4 stars, knew most of the 4-star generals. Well, there was a couple-year gap there, and when he came in, General Mattis got rid of all the bad generals with General Trump that were Obama generals. This guy Milley was a new general and had yet to work his way up the general ranks, and was kind of the last man standing. So he, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, no ma'am, no ma'am. God did everything he had to do, got appointed, and became the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Or first he was the chief of staff of the Army, then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, because he was the last guy standing after everybody else got fired. So,
but Mike, I hear all of that, and all of that is a great premise.
Well, this is the background. This is the background part of the conversation.
There you go. Okay, let's get into what he did, though.
Having said all of that, that leads into what he did, Craig, and tell people what he did, because he was the yes man who wanted the authority. That's all he wanted was the authority.
So here's what happened. So first of all, you had back in October of 2020, he actually got on the phone with Chinese General Lee, and pretty much, first of all, told him that, if don't worry, we're not going to attack you. And by the way, suddenly attack you. By the way, if we were going to attack you, I would make it a point to tell you, give you all the information that you would need to know, so that you'll know that we're about to attack you. Matter of fact, specifically, what he said in this call, and this is what it says in the book. This was from Tucker Carlson. It says, "Generally, you and I have known each other for 5 years." Right? Milley went on, if we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. So, first of all, understand, he called the head of our military, called probably our biggest military opponent, enemy, whatever you want to call it, rival, whatever you want to call it, and told them, don't worry, we're going to have your back. And by the way, he didn't tell the president that he had this phone call. He didn't tell him that he was going to call him before, and he didn't tell him that he called him and said this stuff afterwards. Now, fast forward to January 6th. Around January 6th, he pulled together all of the other generals, all of the other heads of the various military operations, and basically told them that they were not to take orders from anyone but him, not to take orders from the president. But if the president or the Secretary of Defense or if anybody called them and requested or anything, that they were supposed to go to him and follow his orders in his direction. Now, Mike, I once again, I may be overstating things. I don't think I am, but that sounds a lot to me like it was an attempted military coup.
If not an attempted military coup, a standby coup if things went the way he didn't like, because they were not planning the actual overthrow. His his posture was that the president was insane and lost his mind and been erratic ever since the election, and he wanted a backup plan. Now, you did start this by saying, Craig, the actual phone call, from everything that I've read and taken a look at, this is so far an alleged phone call, not an actual phone call. I haven't seen the transcript yet. Unless you've had time to look and tell me you've seen it, then I'll take that.
Oh no. But here's the thing, and this is the one thing I will say is that Bob Woodward is not. He's no friend of Donald Trump. He really isn't. He's no friend of conservatives.
There you go. Right.
But at least in terms of things that happen, opinions may be different. But at least in terms of things that happen, his books do tend to be pretty accurate. I find it hard to believe that Bob Woodward would lie about a phone call like this at this stage of his career in a book, especially one that actually makes Milley look as bad as this one does.
Well, Milley is that bad, and that's what I'm telling you. He's no friend of anybody in this country. He's except the liberal elite. He's the one that you'll see in the groups of parties with the liberal elite after he's out of uniform. Yeah, listen, as far as Woodward goes, and Woodward and Costa this time, I trust them about as much as I trusted Woodward and Bernstein last time. I trust them as much as I trust Ren and Stimpy. These guys, they're in it for the. We're investigative journalism. We're trying to expose the real truth. But I notice your name's on the front of the book, not on the back. You're doing this for personal recognition as well and personal financial gain. Did some of this happen? Absolutely, I have no doubt whatsoever. I know the kind of general and the kind of officer that General Milley is, and I'm on record throwing him under the bus years ago when he first came to office. I talked with congressmen about him, former military officers about him, and everybody's aware of what his status is. He's never, I said this from day one, was never a friend and never a benefit to the Trump presidency whatsoever. But when you're trying to empty the swamp, guess what? Some swamp rats stick around. You can't get rid of,
some are able to cling on to to the shovel or whatever it is that you're using.
Exactly right. And he was one of them. We know there were many. As the term of the president went along, we know there were many, and he was one of them.
Yes, sir. So anyway, there will definitely be more to come as this book is released and as General Milley comes out and starts to talk about it. But I have to say, I do agree with former President Trump in this case. This is true and this is proven,
just so you know, he will not be able to talk about this while in uniform.
Right.
So you're going to get nothing from him except DOD or Pentagon statements. He will not be able to talk about this while in uniform.
If this is proven to be true, he may not be in uniform much longer.
Yeah. Now, he may have to testify before Congress, but guess who's in charge in Congress?
Right.
Yeah. They're not going to call him,
Right. Well, will be interesting to say the least. More to come from this story, to say the least.
Yep.
All right. So moving right along, DOJ, the U.S. Department of Justice has decided that not only did they file a lawsuit against Texas in order to keep them from implementing the abortion law, but they're actually now looking for an emergency injunction. They're appealing it. They're moving it up the ranks. Now, mind you, what an injunction basically means is part of it. The ruling with an injunction is there has to be a belief that you will win the lawsuit. At least it's more likely than not that you'll win your particular lawsuit. And I keep saying California because California DOJ sucks. But the U.S. Department of Justice has decided that they're going full bore after Texas in order to stop them from protecting innocent life in the womb. Yeah,
this is this one angers me. This one is going to have a great outcome, though. The secondary outcome of this is going to be, the second iteration of the outcome is going to be very very fun to watch. We just had within the past couple of weeks, even the United States Supreme Court has said over the lawsuit from Texas that they wanted to get an injunction put in place, and they wanted the Texas new abortion law in Texas declared unconstitutional. It went to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they said, we are not going to hear your case. Sorry, we're not going to hear your case. So And that's, you know what that is, Craig? That's the Supreme Court telling the state that's a state's issue. That's you and your law, and you need to square that away amongst there. We right here are saying that there's nothing unconstitutional about restricting abortions. You know,
well, actually, what it was and what they specifically said was there was not a need for them to put in place an injunction.
Correct.
And that's really all they were being asked, because it has to work its way up to the Supreme Court. Correct. The only thing that really made its way to them was the request for an injunction. Injunction meaning we're going to keep you from enforcing the law while this works its way through. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to keep them from enforcing the law.
Exactly right. So that's when the Supreme Court says, right, we're not going to do what you ask us to do. We're going to let the law stand in place. That's, you know, listen, there's other ways. We know that if somebody doesn't have standing, they can say no, send it back. But this wasn't a send it back. This was a no, we're not doing what you asked us to do. We're not giving you the injunction. So here's where I'm angry. Here's the angry Mike part, that the Department of Justice decides, oh, well, we don't think the judicial branch is doing this correctly. We don't think that the legislative branch in Texas is doing their job properly. We don't think that the judicial branch of the United States is doing their job properly. So we as the executive branch are going to stick our nose into legislative and judicial business to try and make them see things the way this administration wants people to see things. And they may even get somewhere, Craig. They may get a foothold. They may get an injunction. And then this is going to end back up at the Supreme Court of the United States. And the Supreme Court is going to look at it based around constitutional issues and say, DOJ, you have no standing. Everything that's just happened is being overturned, and this actually will have the opportunity. Listen, this administration has cried and cried and cried that the Republican court is going to get rid of Roe v. Wade, right? And the DOJ may have just started that ball rolling.
Well, and that's where I think that you and I definitely agree on that. I definitely believe that they're pushing this at the way in which they're doing it. Because in the end, the Supreme Court's already said, no, you're not going to get an injunction. What makes them think because the federal Department of Justice is asking that they're going to get an injunction?
Because now the DOJ is not going to go to the Supreme Court, Craig. They're going to go to the Texas court.
They're going to go judge shopping there in Texas.
Exactly right.
But the problem is you're going to have to find a judge in Texas who is going to defy the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court's already said no. They're going to have to find a pretty darn they're going to just have to make stuff up in order to get an injunction from any federal judge there in Texas.
And you haven't seen a federal judge this week make stuff up just to give an injunction to meet an agenda?
I'm talking direct defiance of a recent Supreme Court ruling.
Well, they'll use a different reason. They'll come forward with a different reason. They'll say that, listen, they'll find another reason to have standing. They'll base it on, there's not enough trained doctors for it, so therefore it's dangerous. They'll come at it with a different angle, and then the judge will go, well, I agree. We're putting people's lives at risk, so we're going to put the injunction in place for everyone. They'll find a stupid reason to get a federal judge to say okay, and then it's going to end up back at the Supreme Court of the United States. And again, with the potential for actually, null and voiding out Roe v. Wade. Well, and this is being pushed by Biden's administration. It's like they can play checkers, but they can't play chess. They don't know how to look 2 moves ahead. No,
exactly. They're not thinking. They're clearly not thinking, because the direction that they're going and the speed at which they're pushing it. They might wind up. It is likely to wind up in an overturning of Roe v. Wade. They were better off to let sleeping dogs lie.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay, Mike, this is one that I know you're going to enjoy having a conversation about, and this has to do with COVID. Now, here's the interesting thing. Now, we all kind of knew this, and we've had the conversation about, the numbers in terms of hospitalizations and people dying of COVID versus with COVID. Well, here's an interesting thing. There was a study that was first revealed by The Atlantic. Now, if any of you have ever read The Atlantic, this is not a conservative newspaper. It's not even an objective newspaper. It is a left-wing rag. It is all it's really good for. But in The Atlantic, and also reported by Yahoo News, they found out that up to 57% of the people who were hospitalized or who were marked as COVID people in the hospital weren't even in the hospital for COVID. In fact, they had little or no symptoms. They were in the hospital with COVID. In other words, the only reason they knew they had COVID was because they were there at the hospital for something else and they tested them and oops, they have COVID. So, I mean, and by the way, and they're deeming that a lot of the same thing is happening with a number of the deaths. People who are dying are not dying of COVID, they're dying with COVID.
Craig, this is my I told you so face. All right. Since day one, this is what you've heard. This is the argument we have heard. Well, we had 7,000 COVID deaths. No, we had 7,000 deaths. But now you're trying to attribute them all to COVID. The county where I live is a rather liberal county, Craig, and they've done some auditings here. And it's amazing. In the past 2 years, the only causes of death in this county have been murder and COVID. Murder and COVID. You know why you can't have a COVID murder? Because you can't charge somebody with murder unless it says murder on the death certificate. Everything else has been COVID. No flu, no cancer, no anything else. Now, there are certain numbers out there. I don't want you to think this has been 100% one way, but they have been absolutely being marked as COVID as causes of deaths or influences on cause of death to get these numbers up there. Yet you go out to a conservative county and you look at them and their numbers and stats are the same as it's been for the past 10 or 20 years. We know that they're picking these numbers up. We know that every hospital, and I have no problem with a hospital testing you for COVID when you get in there because they want to isolate you, and you may be asymptomatic. They may want to isolate you so you don't infect some 70-year-old person with asthma and diabetes. So there's no issue with that. But as they go through and they test everybody, the guy who came in with a broken leg, and they test him, and he shows up as COVID, now it's a COVID hospitalization. And that's where the lies have been occurring to you. Since day one, you've been lied to. I tell you every day I look at these statistics. I tell you every day to trust us and to trust yourself to go find the real statistics. And here you are. Here's another story coming to you, maybe not from the left, but from the center that lets you know what we've been telling you has been accurate.
Well, exactly. And, I've never disagreed with the idea that I know that they're cooking the books. We've all known that they're cooking the books. And they're doing it because, number one, they want to scare us because they want to control us. But number two, they're doing it for the money. And they realize that the money's there. And by the way, that's not me saying that COVID isn't a serious thing. It is a serious thing. But the problem is that when your government and the medical establishment are providing you with either incorrect or just flat out false information, you wonder why people don't trust them. You wonder why people don't trust the vaccine. Because you've already proven, Dr. Fakey, that you're a liar. You've already proven, CDC, that the information you're providing is, or World Health Organization, the information you're providing us is maybe at best what you know right now. And you don't want to admit that you don't know. You don't want to admit that, well, hey, maybe there's stuff that's safe to do, but not necessarily safe. Maybe there are people who are at more risk than others. I'm still trying to get over this whole, well, if get the vaccine in order to protect others. If you are vaccinated, chances are you're not going to get seriously ill. I think it's something like, yes, you are 11 times more likely to die from COVID. This is their numbers. I'm using their numbers, right? From COVID if you have the vaccine. So wait, so if I'm safe, if I've gotten vaccinated, why does it matter if someone else gets vaccinated? I don't understand that. I don't understand how if I get vaccinated, I can still get it and I can still give it to other people. How am I protecting other people by getting vaccinated? I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense. And they're doing, at the very best, they're doing a crappy job of explaining it.
Well, it's lies and manipulation, Craig. Just the numbers you just cited with the 11 times more likely within the next month or two will be the next set of numbers that'll tumble. The same way the last set, today's number, with 57%. I'm telling you, it's not true. Let me tell you, Craig. I was in New York this past weekend. All right, went and saw the 9/11 anniversary, the commemoration there. Also took in a baseball game, mind you, while I was there. Went and sat with 42,000 of my closest friends and relatives, right? Inside the bowl, all shoulder to shoulder, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, no problem. Only mask I saw was the catcher's mask, all right? Then we go to get on the subway. I don't know if anybody's ever been on a subway before or been in a train station. I want you to think about the closest people can be together. I want you to think about when you've seen the stories of soccer riots and they all mob the fence line and people are crushed. Well, that's what it's like trying to get on a subway in New York after a baseball game. All right, and you've got all of those people. You couldn't be closer, Craig, to these people unless you were not wearing clothes. That's the only way possible. All right, because you are just one person rubbing on 17 others, moving in a mass. You're moving everybody's touching each other, okay? I'm not talking about hand on them. I'm talking about face to back of head, your body against their body as you're walking through. You're doing that with 20, 30,000 people getting on the subway. And then when you get on the subway and you sit down, you got to put your mask on because you don't want to spread the COVID.
Exactly.
That's what the mayor wants you to do. So
exactly.
At that point, put your mask on.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Never mind the sweaty guy in front of me whose face is right here as I'm in the subways in the queue line. But when I get on and I sit down, I got to put my mask on.
Exactly.
Because I don't want to get the COVID.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
It doesn't make
Craig,
sense.
Going back to the vaccination thing, I just want to remind you today to make sure you do well on your diet today and eat under 2,000 calories, under 10 grams of fat, because I don't want to gain weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you do well on your diet, so I lose weight. Just like the vaccinations.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, you brought up masks, so I figured that was a good thing to our parting shot today. And then you guys have probably seen this cartoon before, but I just thought it was hilarious. This is kind of how I feel about having to wear masks and what it's like trying to wear masks. It's funny as I walk and yesterday as I was trying to vote. And I'm trying to talk to the person, and both of us wound up having to take down our masks so that we could understand what the other person was saying.
Yep. The good thing about having the mask in this cartoon right here, in this parting shot, is now he can use the mask to pick up the dog's excrement. So he could be a good neighbor and curb his dog.
Exactly. Which is funny. The other day, I decided to take my dog for a walk. And so we walk all down the street, and we have a bunch of fields and whatnot. So the dog, pees 3 times. Decides to wait till we get back to our house, in front of our house, to poop on the lawn.
That's how it should be. All you dog walking poopers that poop in front of somebody else's yard. I mean, I understand you pick it up. That's great, but I don't want to look out my front bay window and watch your dog pooping.
Hilarious. All right, hey, Mikey, give a shout out to our sponsors.
Let's say hello to our good friends at Gorilla Machining and Grid Defense. All of our friends there, thank you again for sponsoring. I believe this week again we're looking at another 80% lower, 80% aluminum paperweight, 80% T-7075 aircraft grade aluminum. Nice surprise gift for you on Freedback Friday.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. Guys, make sure that you tune in. Please make sure that you like and share. Now, you're watching us on probably a bunch of different channels, whether it's, once again, 2A News, whether you're watching us on Arms Room Radio or California Republican Assembly, also one of our sponsors. Please make sure, though, that you like, subscribe, and share to The Rundown. That's therundown.us. You'll find that that'll take you directly to our YouTube channel, but also The Rundown on Facebook. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and encourage your friends to do the same.
Do it now. Like, share, subscribe. Do it.
See ya on Thirsty Thursday.
Woohoo!